Hi everyone, Rabbi Abram here, and I gave this sermon on January 1st, 2021. I hope you all had a great New Year's, and I'm so thrilled to be speaking with you with 2020 behind us. And with 2020 now in our hindsight, I'd like to speak with you about a difficult and often emotional subject, preparing for our end of life. I believe that so often there are missed opportunities to have these kinds of conversations. As a Jewish community, it is our responsibility to make sure that our members who pass away are treated to their wishes and with guidance from our tradition. Which is why for the month of January, we are running a campaign to help spark conversations about end-of-life planning. At this very moment, you can go to our website and under the Community tab, you'll find useful resources and ideas to help with your end-of-life planning. So you can see all this information at frozenchosen.org. This month, I'm going to spend time talking about how our tradition understands death and the practices that we do to help us mourn and ease our suffering. Judaism is an old religion, and sometimes that's frustrating because when someone asks me why we light 2 Shabbat candles instead of 1, the best answer that I have is the reason was lost with time. However, our tradition around death have formed over a millennia into a wise practice that's designed to help us mourn. This is not necessarily a topic we enjoy thinking about. However, it is our obligation as a Jewish community to support each other during all of our life cycle events. This means celebrating births in our community, mourning loss in our community, and everything in between. So just for the month of January, I'm going to spend time asking our community members to think about their end of life and their wishes for what happens to their body, their estate, and to offer guidance for the loved ones who survived them. Meanwhile, for this month, I'm going to show how Judaism has many beautiful practices to help prepare for one's end of life and to support mourners. And we only have to go as far as this week's portion, Vayechi, to see how Jacob prepares his end of life. He calls his son Joseph in, and using an oath formula, which is the biblical equivalent of a will or contract, he asks Joseph to bury him in an already prepared burial site in the land of Canaan. Jacob made sure that Joseph knew his wishes, so Joseph would not have to guess on what to do with Jacob's remains. This is a beautiful gift that Jacob thoughtfully offered his son. Instead of his son fretting about where Jacob should be buried, Joseph instead will be able to spend that time mourning. Anyways, Judaism has lots of rules on burial practices. Almost all of them come from a sense of compassion for the person who passed away or for their loved ones who survived them. For example, the Talmud teaches us why we use particular materials to bury and support our loved ones. And it goes like this. The sages taught at first the meal after the burial would be brought to the house of the mourners in various ways. The wealthy would bring the meal in baskets of silver and gold, and the poor would bring it in baskets of peeled willow branches. And the poor were embarrassed, as everyone would see that they were poor. The sages instituted that everyone should bring the meal in baskets of peeled willow branches, due to the honor of the poor. Additionally, at first, the wealthy would take the deceased out for burial on a lavish and expensive bier, which is like a casket stand. And the poor would take the deceased on a plain bier made from poles that were strapped together, and the poor were embarrassed. The sages instituted that everyone should be taken out for a burial on a plain bier due to the honor of the poor. Likewise, preparing the dead for burial can be more difficult for the relatives than the actual death, because it was customary to bury the dead in expensive shrouds, which the poor could not afford. The problem grew to the point that relatives would sometimes abandon the corpse and run away. This lasted until Rabbi Gamliel came and lessened his own importance by leaving instructions His body would be dressed in linen garments, and the people adopted this practice after him and themselves prepared for burial in linen garments. As you can see, the Talmud scholars were so worried that the burial practice would be too onerous for the poor, they changed the whole practice so that everyone is buried in a simple fashion. And that is why I love our tradition, because even at death, especially at death, we must treat each other with dignity. Not just the body of our loved ones, but also those who do not have the means to provide their loved ones with a lavish burial. We are not allowed to go so far in honoring one that has passed away that we embarrass others in the process. Furthermore, we believe in a democracy in death, that death is the great equalizer, and we can anticipate that all loved ones from our community who pass away will be treated equally. This is one of the reasons why we are always buried in a simple wooden casket, often referred to as an aron. Not just to honor those who cannot afford a lavish aron, but to show that we honor all who die the same. Furthermore, there is a tradition that Jewish families who have the means give away the difference of the money between a lavish aron and a simple one to charity. And just so you're aware, our community works with Jansen Funeral Homes at Evergreen Memorial Chapel, who are very knowledgeable of Jewish burial practices and always have simple wooden arons available for those who need one. We have information on contacting them on our website at frozenchosen.org. Anyways, thank you for listening to this difficult subject. I plan to give another sermon to introduce other Jewish burial practices next week. I hope that during this month you'll take some time and think about what your wishes are for yourself and your estate, and use our resources to help you. Thank you.